Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really great guest on today. She's a design anthropologist, a researcher, an academic leader, a writer, and an educator. She was the Dean of the Faculty of Design at OCAD University in Toronto from 2016 to 2023, and the first Black Dean of a Faculty of Design anywhere. Please join me in welcoming Dori Tunstall. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm so excited to join you.
Are you ready for 20 questions?
I'm ready for 20 questions.
Okay, question one. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
Um, so uh, Beyond the positions that I had at OCAD University, which I just left in June of this 2023, I am an author of Decolonizing Design, a Cultural Justice Guidebook, published by MIT Press. And I'm the founder and lead executive officer of Dori Tunstall Inc., a firm dedicated to decolonizing and diversifying institutional processes with companies and organizations. Really focused on strategic consulting, leadership coaching, care shops instead of workshops, and then developing customizable curriculum, again, for institutions and organizations.
Perfect. And number two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
I think in the work that I'm doing now, beyond diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, I really work with companies and organizations to build good relations with diverse cultural communities. So I'm really located within the realms of cultural justice, but with an emphasis on putting Indigenous first. So how do we position ourselves vis-a-vis Indigenous sovereignty Indigenous sovereignty and again, cultural revitalization.
Great. And just a note for the audience, this episode actually comes to us tangentially through one of our prestigious episodes with John Maeda. So question three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Honestly, I don't know any other way to be in the world. I'm an anthropologist by training, but I also got into anthropology because I've always wanted to understand how people think and how they behave within their own ways of being. And then I gravitated towards design as a profession because if you're focused on justice, it requires acting in a way that makes conditions better for others. And I tend to focus on, how do we make conditions better for those who are most vulnerable? So I've left academia because really through a lot of work by people, there's a lot of people who can do the work of decolonization in those institutions. And I've kind of refocused on industry because I feel if I can help transform industry to commit to being, more respectful and authentic in its relationships with culture communities, then it'll create conditions of liberatory joy for all.
Great. And some people struggle with number four, but the question is, what does your future look like?
So I'm pretty good at manifesting the ideal life I want to have. So, I'm deeply engaged with grounding myself within a tight-knit group of family and friends for whom I actively care, focusing on teaching and sharing impactful messages that prompt people to liberate themselves and others and nature from conditions of oppression and enslavement. So my future, it doesn't look too different from the present life that I'm building. It's just getting deeper and deeper into, again, that manifestation of the ideal life that I've always wanted to live.
Great. And number five, we say is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
Well, in my work around decolonization, it's centering Indigenous sovereignty as the land, as my colleague Matthew Hickey recently reminded me. And so, as a multi-generational African American cis woman in solidarity with that struggle, the history of place, my positionality within place, the present future of place, all become of utmost importance to me. So wherever I am or where I have connection, I'm always asking myself, how can I positively contribute to the sense of joy, the practice of joy of that place? Um, and that could range again from, institutions that I work with, institutions that I've been a part of, and communities. I've been so fortunate to travel all around the world. So the communities and the sense of community that I've been building with people in place.
Great. And six, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
None. I pretty much lived my life with the privilege of knowing who I am at my core and being clear on my true purpose, which has always been about co-creating conditions for liberatory joy. Although the forms in which that purpose have been made manifest constantly changing. So I feel like I've been pretty authentic to who I am since I was a child. And again, pretty clear on the kind of impact that I want to have in the world. So I wouldn't tell myself anything beyond what I was doing at that time.
Great. And what's a day in your life?
That varies constantly. I mean, I think what's consistent for me these days is just trying to quote unquote accomplish only two major tasks per day. And that's about me caring more for myself and my capacity. I've been focused on caring for my aunt by cooking, getting exercise, and planning really cool excursions with her here in Los Angeles on the lands of the Tongva and Chumash peoples. And I've gone back to reading novels, and it took me a while to get back into being able to concentrate long enough to read full novels. So those are kind of the daily practices that I trying to focus on in terms of what my day looks like.
Great. And eight, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Surprisingly, I'm learning a lot from Instagram Reels, and it's because so many scholars and activists, which I curate my Instagram profile mostly around artists, designers, activists, and scholars. So they've been creating very deeply informative content. Like right now, some of my faves are like the Orca Man, who focus on whales. There's this scholar, Krish Ashok, who does a lot of sort of presentations on the science of Indian cooking. The Monterey Bay Aquarium has their content writer writes the most amazing puns. YK Hung on social and tech justice. Aina Momona on Hawaiian indigenous sovereignty, and then Mona Shalabi's infographics are just kind of some of the favorite reels and things that I'm just again learning so much from Instagram as a platform. And I read lots of books, and people send me lots of books to be read. I think the only shift right now is that I'm not reading journal articles as much as I used to. But yeah, like I honestly stay up to date on through Instagram Reels.
Great. And halfway, number 10, work-life balance. How do you deal with it?
There's two ways to answer that. The primary way is that I've always aligned the work I do with my purpose so that I'm not alienated from my labor in any way, shape, or form. So in that sense, I don't have to separate my life and my work because the work I do so positively contributes to my life and well-being as an individual and within community. And then the second way to answer it is that I've stopped working directly within institutions, and I've been shocked over the last 6 months to just realize how much that's been able to realign my sense of work-life balance.
Great. And if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
I'm actually I'm kind of at the point where I've designed my life to be exactly what I'm doing now, which is, working to transform institutions and individuals through consulting, which is just another form of teaching for me. Writing books and articles for publications like Fast Company, and then giving talks internationally. So I've kind of whittled away a lot of the other activities that didn't bring me as much joy, and now I'm really focused on the things that really again, that I love and bring me into a state of bliss.
Great. And what would you not like to do with your career?
Um, Again, I think that the thing that I'm really focused on is getting rid of things that restrict my freedom of being. And so some of that manifests in terms of like not having direct bosses, being my own boss. And some of it is just making sure that everyone that I engage with are, whether as a client or as a fellow collaborator, that they're doing things in ways that don't restrict my freedom to be who I am
Mm.
in my most authentic self.
And how about a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Uh, my favorite quote actually comes from myself in the book Decolonizing Design, which is what I normally write down when I'm doing the dedication, which is be liberatory joy for bodies and with communities.
How about a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
My least favorite sort of phrase is I'm entitled to. And it's a thing I've been listening a lot from and about from people, in the sense that I think some of the ways in which we've lost our way as a society is around expectations of what we're entitled to, as opposed to what we are contributing to, what we have obligations towards. And so I've been finding that there's a visceral reaction that I have when people speak of something to which they feel entitled.
If you had to choose one word to describe yourself, what word would you choose?
Um, People speak to me or say to me that I'm inspirational. And I take that to mean that I live an authentic life, deeply connected to who I am, but also, manifesting in a way that liberates others to be their most authentic selves, in ways that don't harm others. So inspirational, but it's more of what people, a word that people use to describe me. But I take it to mean, about being centered in my authenticity that's not harmful to others.
Great. And what keeps you up at night?
Feeling that my government and the mainstream media does not listen to me, or does not care about the actions that I think should be taken in the world.
Great. And final stretch here. What's a dream you're chasing?
For the last couple of years, I've really just been deeply within manifesting the dreams that I've had before. And so I'm kind of more, instead of chasing a dream, I'm more about like just creating and co-creating with community and people conditions of flourishing for me, which I guess in and of itself, like that was the dream, right? Those conditions of flourishing for me. And so I'm not chasing it. I'm actually in the midst of it being manifest in beautiful ways.
And what inspires you?
Everyday people and animals and nature just kind of living their lives in fearless freedom.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what inspires me, is just those. And again, that could be a wide range of, again, people, nature, who are just fearlessly free.
And advice, any advice you'd like to share?
Again, I think just be liberatory joy for bodies and with cultural communities. And specifically, I think, I when I was teaching, I always would talk a lot to students about always take the side of liberation, especially for those who are most vulnerable to any kind of decision that is being made. And then, joy is found in through and with connection. So, always try to make joyful connections with others. And again, the others is not just people, but also includes nature.
Great. And finally, number 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you? What's our call to action today?
So I can be found mostly on Instagram and LinkedIn these days. So Instagram is Dori_Tunstall. LinkedIn is just Dori Tunstall. DoriTunstall.com will be launched in a few months. And then I have a cadence of monthly articles that I tend to publish with Fast Company. So that's another place you can find me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining today. Such a privilege to have you here. Thanks.
Thank you.